All right. I wanted to welcome you guys to our quarterly review and planning session. This is just to kind of give you an overview of the process. I highly recommend you take some time to do this. I'm kind of giving you a little bit of a punch list of how I do it, so that way you can take this and incorporate it into your systems and processes as well as a coach. So let's go ahead and jump into what is being covered. So, a few housekeeping things. This will be available for replay later. And I will also make the slides available. Again, as usual, my slides are usually a little wordy, so that way they can kind of stand on their own without you having to go back through all of this. And because I love a good roadmap, here's what we're going to cover. So there's really kind of 5 steps to the process that I follow. There's looking back, looking forward, and even more looking directly ahead at like what's coming. So there's vision, and then there's kind of choosing your focuses, and then prioritization of your habits and things, and then use all of that information to create a realistic 90-day plan that's not going to leave you feeling overwhelmed, but you can still advance and, of course, pull things in if you get what you set done, finished. Very quickly, I want to introduce myself. My name is Ashley Clayton. I'm a technology and marketing coach for coaches, and I've got over a decade and a half of hands-on experience in all areas of tech, marketing, and just navigating the ever-evolving digital landscape. What makes me different from other coaches is that I am very much a strategy first. Um, sorry, losing my mouse. Strategy first, and letting that dictate the tools that are and tactics that you use in your business. Um, and I bring that experience to my coaching clients because tech and marketing is very interconnected these days. And I know coaches can find both of those things intimidating. But what you're really here for is to go through the quarterly planning process. So let's start there. I do want to preface, even after talking about tools and all that, because this is going to be a strategy focused session. I'm not going to talk a lot about tools or demonstrate things like my Notion systems today, because it's really more about the strategy behind how I set up those tools, or how you will set up the tools and things that you choose to use, whatever system or platforms you use. So because planning and strategic planning is unique to every individual, every business, I didn't want to get hung up on that you have to use this software or this tool or this platform. But if you have any questions, I'm happy, of course, to kind of take that on in the comments below. So feel free to comment away, um, as well as I'll review them after this is over as well. So the first step in evaluating is going to be evaluate what is working and what isn't, and figuring out how you can kind of use those to move forward. Um, Again, this is part of a larger system. So really quick, I'm going to give you kind of an overview of that. This is a rolling annual planning system is effectively what this is. A lot of times when you set goals, you set it at the end of the year, or the start of the year, or the end of the year, sometimes depending. And then you just kind of keep working, but you don't necessarily reevaluate or adjust. There's benefits to long and short-term planning, and this system gives you the best of both worlds. So the first is, we're going to look back, we're going to reconnect with our vision, we're going to set or readjust annual goals that we may have set before. And then from there, that's where the 90-day plan is going to be the main focus of this. And then once you have the 90-day, that's where your monthly plan and then your weekly plan and daily execution kind of come into play. And that's how the whole system kind of comes in together. So what are the advantages of using a system like this? I've always treated plans like intentions, because I don't remember what general said it, but it's a very oft quoted military thing where it's like, plans never survive contact with the enemy. Well, to paraphrase, plans rarely survive contact with life in the real world. Um, as humans, we're just bad at estimating things sometimes, including the timelines of what things actually take versus um, trying to inadvertently overloading ourselves and then feeling burned out, overwhelmed, and like nothing's working. So where rolling annual plan comes in is it lets you have that long-term strategy for your quarter, and you can kind of set all 4 quarters at the same time if you want, or you can kind of take it quarter by quarter. It's up to you. But the bottom line is it lets you be adaptable because you're really never further from your goal or what the reality of living a vision is than when you initially set it. As you take steps and make progress towards your goals and visions, that is going to give you more input. That's going to become clearer. And sometimes when the picture becomes a little bit clearer, you're like, oh, not quite the direction I want to go. This gives you the adaptability to kind of pivot based on that direction. It also has that quarterly check-in point to make sure that what you're doing on a monthly, weekly, and daily basis really is rolling up to the larger big picture goals and visions that you have for your business and your life. And by taking a time to kind of go a little bit deeper than you normally would on like a monthly or an annual plan, by doing this quarterly, it lets you actually execute faster because you're slowing down in order to speed up and kind of set the direction. And so this really is, those are the really big ones. But again, we live in a real world. We live in a broken world sometimes, and we live in reality. And so this is where the planning and reality can meet together in order to continually adapt to how life happens. One way this has actually helped me is I remember in 2018, I had a whole lot of plans, business plans, starting different things. Bam, March, found out I was pregnant with my youngest son. So having this system in place allowed me to pivot. Same thing during, the pandemic. I was able to pivot and keep my sanity because I had this system in place. So let's go ahead and head over to the first step, which really is, looking back, taking the lessons. This is the step that a lot of people tend to skip because we just kind of get in this doing phase of things and just keep without actually looking at, okay, we're doing all the things, but how is that working? That is the step that this is. And so I'm going to leave this up for a second. And again, you'll get a copy of this. I'll link the slides as well. But really, it's like what's working, and just even over the last 90 days. So you want to start with the positive because there's got to be something that's going well in your business, and something that's going well in your life if you look, hard enough. And even, nothing is too small a win to be a win, because even sometimes the hardest times of life, you're learning things. And so if it feels like your, last quarter was, oh, it was a failure because I didn't get X, Y, Z and everything done that I wanted to, was it really, or did we learn that maybe you're overloading yourself, or that there are other factors in place? So really just take an objective and honest look at yourself. Like don't judge yourself, because the idea is you're taking these things and moving forward with them. And then kind of a third component that I want to throw in is like, what can I try? We can feel really stuck if we're like, well, this didn't work. Well, turn it around. How might this work? Hey, I put out this offer and nobody bought. Oh, I guess I'll, toss it aside. No, it's okay. Well, why might it not have worked? Was I positioning it to the right audience? Did I adequately explain it? Was I doing the activities that would generate the sales calls where I could talk about it? Did I actually do any market research to validate that this is something the market actually wants? So by reframing it in a how might this work, it gets your brain into a different mindset to where you can kind of explore some of the different possibilities, because there is more than one route to success as a coach. And so I just wanted to give you some tools that could help you there. Um, and so the key takeaway from this section is that the rolling annual planning is going to keep you adaptable. And for those of us that like to, it's like, I made a plan, I'm going to stick with it. It gives you that level of commitment that you can still commit to a plan for 90 days with the, okay, I'm going to evaluate and have an honest look at, is this still doing? So it's a little bit, um, for those of us that sometimes self-govern with some very stringent rules, it's, this is the time box I'm putting on this with the ability to reevaluate it, as opposed to, well, I committed to this and I'm going to let myself down if I don't stay with it for the duration. Because as you do things, you're going to be getting feedback. This system lets you incorporate that feedback to adapt and iterate your business forward. It's ITERATEOLOgy. And reviewing your results lets you get a realistic forecast of how your business works, not what somebody says your targets or your performance indicators should be, or what your page should be converting at. It's like, okay, what does my business or my page or my website convert at today? I can use that to forecast and understand where I need to optimize or focus in the next 90 days to get the numbers to move in the direction that you want. That's part of a bigger analytics discussion, but the principle still applies here, is you need to review, even if it's more of a qualitative look at your business rather than like the quantitative, which is like, my numbers were, I had made this much in revenue versus how did I make this in revenue? That sort of thing. But the goal is use all the information at your disposal to iterate and improve on what is working and try some different things to keep moving forward. The next step after you have kind of done the look back for things, and you don't have to fill out a thing with each question, just think through the questions, write down just stray thoughts, words, or whatever that happens. This can be done on a piece of paper. It can be built into a larger, more complex system. It's whatever works for you. The point is to do it. It doesn't need to be perfect, and just move on with it. So the next thing is to consider, and I actually should have made a slide for this, but I'm actually going to go back real quick. One thing, a lot of the productivity books, and trust me, I've read so many of them, is they talk about like how to get things done, but nobody really considers like the capacity of an individual to get things done. If we're taking on too much, our plates can only hold so much. And so that's where looking ahead with a more practical application helps. So the first exercise is look at kind of the different pillars of your life. And I have this broken out into, you've got personal pillars, which are like the only things that you can kind of control. And the idea too behind the pillars are, these are the things that, if you imagine your house on, 4 different stilts, if any one of these is, you know, out of whack, or for some of us, it could be a 3-legged stool. You might just have, business versus work. That's up to you. But the idea is if any one of those pillars is out of alignment or um, off kilter, your whole life feels off kilter, because it's about having things integrated, not necessarily balanced. But to break it out again is, your personal pillars. So these are the areas that fall under this. And this is my system. If you have a different system you prefer, use that. Totally fine. Is, faith and spirituality, health and wellness, mindset and identity, lifestyle, so marriage or love relationship, which if you're not married and not otherwise engaged with somebody, it can be a self-love thing as well. Family, so that includes kids, extended family, in-laws, etc. Home and lifestyle, So this, I usually kind of will put things like any um, material things that you might want, and it's okay to want material things. Um, Finances and wealth, just how you're managing that. That's a big stewardship category, though. To me, stewardship kind of goes through all of these. And then community and impact. So that'll be your friend groups. Are you part of any organizations? Things like that. Work pillars is more focused on like the skills and things that you have built as a person, as a coach, as well as how you might be leading others, and innovating within the various roles and things that you hold, because those are things that aren't necessarily tied into your business. You may do use your skills and things like I do as part of your business, but to me, it's a slightly separate area. And then you've got your business pillars, which are, of course, your business foundations that you have to have. Your mission, vision, values, who your best client is, and what your core offer is, because those are the pieces that are going to help you stand out on among all the noise online. As well as you have to have your sales and marketing, so you're bringing clients in, operations and fulfillment, which is, maintaining clients, maintaining the business, and actually getting your clients results. And then you have a fourth category, which I do, which is tech and systems, which is kind of all of the tech that's involved in running your business and how well you have things systematized, so that way, as you're able to hire out or do things, there is a clear standard and process in place that somebody is coming in set up for success. Um, so rate yourself 1 to 10 in each of these life areas. So that is your first step. Once you've done that, it's time to kind of update and revisit your vision. So let me go back real quick. This is the framework that I use when I'm trying to think of what do I want to envision for my life. So it's okay, what do I envision a 10 looking life like for health and wellness? What do I envision a 10 looking like for community and impact, etc.? And so you can, if you have specific skills or things, you can get more detailed with it. But once you score, take a look, what are the top 3 areas that you ranked highest? And just jot some notes on why you ranked them the highest. What areas did you rank the lowest? And why are they the lowest? And don't feel bad if you have an area that's ranked low. That may mean that that's the opportunity to focus on that area, might be something you choose to do. Regardless of what you've ranked where, you can, after that, I want you to choose 2 to 3 areas that you want to focus on specifically for the next 90 days. And that the reason why you're choosing that is going to kind of, your areas are kind of the umbrella that, like, the dreams and themes that are tied to that area which are your aspirational goals, like, dominate the SEO topics for coaches or something like that. Like, how do you measure that? That's not quite a measurable goal, but you have measurable goals and actions that are underneath that. And so for just the areas that you're choosing to focus on the first 30 days. So if this is your first quarterly cycle, start here and then just worry about creating the vision specifically around the areas you're focusing on, so you can get something that's good enough to get going. And that's the whole deal behind all of this, is something good enough on paper to get going and move on. The next, so essentially, once you've picked your 2 to 3 areas, you're going to decide, what does a 10 look like to you right now in this moment in those areas. Your goal may not necessarily be to get from whatever number you're at to a 10, but the idea is to give an idea of the direction that would take you toward a 10, so you can kind of measure your own progress throughout the quarter against that. And what are some ways that you can work to make progress on those focus areas. So if you don't already have a system in place, or even if you do, it's a lot faster if you've already have kind of a running list of goals and projects and habits, because then you can kind of fit them into those different life areas to be able to evaluate. If not, write down some different ideas. The idea is we're kind of dumping out your head and to kind of see what pieces are there, and then we'll decide which ones we want to actually assemble as part of puzzle's probably not the best analogy because usually it's got a set number of things, but the idea is we're just dumping out the puzzle pieces to see what we have to work with as you move forward to do that. The next thing, and this to me is super, super critical when you're doing especially quarterly planning, not so much if you're doing a big annual plan, but quarter to quarter, is use your calendar. Make note of any scheduled trips, birthdays, holidays, and any other obligations that you know of that are coming up in the next 90 to 100, and even out to 120 days. The reason why I recommend going 3 or 4 months out on your calendar, if you're feeling frisky, go 6, is because, case in point, as I'm planning my Q2, I had a couple things I wanted to do in May, but I've had some things that have come up that I'm going to be traveling a lot of May. So I'm naturally going to adjust my project load and the goals and the things that I am pursuing during that month, specifically because I looked ahead. I know that my capacity to have time to work on some of the things that I want to further my goals is going to be less than it would in usually whatever is a typically normal month. If you already did a business calendar, you've already got your launches planned, then that's something to know, because you do want to be able to work backwards off of a launch so you can start and set that launch up for success by priming your audience through content, starting conversations in the DMs, all of that leading up to it. And so by knowing your calendar, and especially your calendar as it correlates to any launches or things you've got going on in your business, you can choose what content you're sharing or what topics you're talking about on social media. Now, if you're setting up a content plan or something for the first time, there's a couple of ways you could go about it. Each month could kind of have its own theme, and you rotate between each topic, or each of 3 to 5 main topics for your site or your social media profile. Or you can also do it week by week. One creator I follow, first week strategy stuff. Next week is one of the platforms they talk about. The next week is another platform they talk about. Or no, it's strategy, basics, beyond basics, and then any platform updates is usually their cadence, which I think is really fun and it works. So you figure out what rotation and cadence you want, and then if you already have kind of that preset theme, you just slot in, okay, I'm creating this content, this content, this content, because then that lets you batch and work ahead for your distribution and how it's released. Again, I can talk on that one for a while, but things to consider just as you're looking at your quarter overall at this point. Once you've identified the 2 to 3 life areas you want to focus on, I recommend choosing 2 to 3 goals within that life area combination to focus on for the quarter. Does it have to be within the life areas? It doesn't have to be, but in order to kind of keep your focus and alignment, I recommend it. But there could be a very good case and reason for wanting to prioritize a goal that's not necessarily tied to one of your focuses. Again, your system, these are guidelines, not set in stone rules that you have to follow. But these are going to definitely be, you could even kind of separate it out to where you've got 2 to 3, major aspirational dreams or themes in your business that, and when I say theme, I'm talking operations, sales and marketing, those that you're wanting to kind of focus in of I've got this, email marketing. That's a theme because you're always going to have to do that. 2 to 3 to focus on. And then from there, you can focus on 2 to 3 smarter style goals where it's actually that measurable, time bound, and all of that to do that. Or a milestone if you've broken out your larger annual goal into like this is this quarter's milestone. That's how you can use that. And then from there, you want to. I usually recommend just because I tend to have a lot going on. 1, maybe 2 projects per month. I would not exceed 5 projects to focus on within a month's time frame, simply because you have to allow for life to happen, and projects tend to be bigger things as opposed to here's an action and then I just do this and it's done. Um, and the idea too is you're going to kind of pre-plan a little bit, just some tentative start dates, or you can assign it of, this one I'm going to start in April, this one I'll start in May, this one I'll start in June as well, to do that. Because the idea, again, we're just dumping out the puzzle pieces to see what all am I trying to cram and fit into the finite time within this quarter that I have. So once you've got all of the puzzle pieces, and just to kind of recap this section as well, throwing out all the puzzle pieces onto the table is a way of being proactive, so you know where you want to go, but also you're examining what your current season of life is, and I will fix that typo, um, to kind of keep things going as things are becoming clearer towards your vision. And the worst thing you can do is make a plan without actually looking at your calendar and your time obligations, because that is going to eat into the available time that you have to do this. And I cannot stress enough, don't discount rest and recharge time. Like if you have to time block that, time block it, or just leave those areas as open in your calendar. You have to remember to schedule and at least account for rest and reality sometimes in your schedule, which is why I recommend the limits that you do on the projects that you do and the goals that you're pursuing in a quarter, just to keep you from overextending yourself and getting burned out or overwhelmed. Being in business is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And I know and that gives you energy and rather than overload you and feels like a burden. So now that we've got all the puzzle pieces out, now is the time to kind of arrange them in the 30, 60, and 90-day out windows that we're going to be doing. This is going to focus around on prioritization, because that's usually the step that a lot of people miss. So when it comes to priority, if everything is a priority, nothing is. I don't remember the author that I'm stealing that quote from. I know I've either read it in one of the many productivity books out. I did not Google it before for attribution purposes. My apologies to the originator of that quote. But I mean, the reality is everything cannot be a priority. If you've come from corporate, or there are some days where it does feel like you've got everything that is number one, priorities can change over the day with it. And so making sure that just in the moment front with broad strokes, just give the things you want to focus on an initial priority within each of their categories. So focus in areas. You rank them 1, 2, 3. You can only have one, you can only have 1, 2, and you can only have 1, 3. Everything else is kind of hanging out, waiting for its turn. And then you do the same thing with your dreams, with your aspirational dreams and themes, goals and milestones, and projects and habits, because by ranking them within kind of like their layer, that helps as you're seeing okay, if I'm focusing on this, and how things kind of trickle down through the system. Um, with the life areas having their own priority, that may change depending on which mode you're in. Like if I'm in business mode, of course, my number one priority to work on is going to be whatever my business number one priority is versus, you know, my personal or work or anything like that. So by having those different priorities, it helps you to do that. And what I like to do, and you can do this with Post-it notes, though I actually do it on a board in my Notion because that's how it's set up. But because I can't have two things that are on top of each other, it forces me to choose. And so that's what prioritization is. It's a forced choice to put something above something else, even if it's just in that moment. How we prioritize our time translates into, you know, how our businesses are able to grow, how connected we feel with our families, and how integrated our life feels. Um, and then remembering that priority is not necessarily an order of operations, because I can prioritize um, writing, you know, blog posts, but if I haven't spent the time to develop a content strategy for those blog posts to fit in, then I mean not the best because it's still just outputting content is still beneficial even if you don't have an overarching strategy behind it. But the content that you produce is going to be more effective, um, and you'll not be sitting there wondering, what should I create today? What video should I do? If you've already taken that time to slow down, create the plan, and then the time is spent executing it. So keep in mind that, you know, um, you can't have, I'm sorry, my brain's just trying to like flowing through all the threads because it's like, generally speaking, there's a certain order that certain things need to happen in, or certain steps that need to be completed before you can do things like, say, launch a website or launch a program that you're doing. And so making sure that, like, if you're like, okay, I really want this to happen, oh, but I need to do this, this, and this before. Well, what needs to be prioritized is whatever that first this, and this step is. And then that also gives you a way to kind of think through your plan. So what does this actually look like? The way I like to kind of lay it out is for your 30-day planning, think about like what are the quick wins that you can get so you can get that um, momentum going? What are the planning or research steps that will set up the execution phase for success? So in the instance where it's like, hey, I can write and create, you know, blog posts and things like that, but by taking the time to do keyword research, come up with a content strategy, and then decide what my themes and my cadence are, I already know the rest of those 60 days what I'm going to be doing because I spent either, you know, depending 30 days, or you can cram it into, you know, 2 week time boxing is always good when you're thinking about research or things. Um, but the idea is just broad strokes. What are the big steps that need to happen 30, 60, 90 to get you, if not to your goal, or further toward your goal? So, example for 30 days. If I'm planning on, you know, I want to launch a full website, including a blog. Well, then my 30-day plan would be planning the pages I need, um, researching designers if I wasn't doing it myself, which I do, um, and you know, writing copy to use in the design, choosing images. Um, arguably that could be 60 days, but really it's the plan. Like what pages are needed, what is the structure your site's going to have. If you're doing a blog, what topics is your site going to cover, and doing the keyword research. So those are 3 things that I would get done in that first 30 days. 60 days is really about working the plan, executing, building consistency, and building the habits and keeping things going. Some of that can happen in the first 30 days. It just depends on what you're working on and what you're working through. But really, it's that 60-day that you're hitting your stride. You're fine tuning the systems that help you create. You're actually acting on the research that you've done. So whether that's putting your offer out there, getting it's kind of a beta and getting some feedback and things. That's really what the 60-day block is about. So in the example of a website design project, it is building those initial pages, creating content for the blog, so that way you're able to launch with a certain set of blog posts. So there's a little bit of something in each category that you can then continue to build upon. And then the 90-day, and it's more towards the end of the 90-day, because you still want to execute through that 90-day cycle. But this is really where you're looking back at what you've already done, similar to what we're doing now, and identifying, okay, what's doing well, what data do I have for insights, are my revenue numbers going the direction that I want them to. And that's even if you're doing a new product or service, you launch in that last 90 days, because again, you want to give yourself a good runway where you have been attracting the right client for your offer. So that way, when you launch it, there are people that are ready to buy. You're not launching it to crickets. And then even after the launch, it can be, what went well during the launch period, what went well as you were working through that website project that you're like, wow, this could have gone better, or if I'd had this, this, and this. So noting that next time you do it. It's not on here, but writing down, okay, this is my standard operating process or procedure, if you prefer, for this system in my business. So it could even be, I'm testing a system around client management in the first 30 days. Like I build it, I'm using it, 60 days, still building, using it, maybe making some tweaks or notes that I want to change. And then 90 days, it's a habit or you've adopted it. So that's one way you can kind of think to break up your 30, 60, or 90-day planning. And so the key takeaways here is really your 90-day plan is your intentions and a guidebook for what you want to accomplish in the quarter. That can change. It's fine, because different things surface at different parts of the month. One of those travel things I've got in May, my son had to qualify for, and we didn't know that until 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that was something that I knew might be coming. So I made sure that I had blocked that time out already, because you can always block off time, and then if plans or something fall through, you just get that time back. Versus if you don't kind of pre-plan for something like that, you're stuck trying to scramble and squidge it in different places. But really, your 90-day plan is the jump start point to your monthly and weekly planning, and a way to keep your goals in front of you. So the way I will take my 90-day plan is, I've got my 30-day, okay, that is April. And so I've already kind of pre-decided what I'm focusing on in April. And so when I'm doing my monthly planning, it's more, okay, what are the focus projects to get me to the goal? If I haven't already picked a project, what are the key actions and next steps for the projects, and even pre-scheduling them out, either assigning them to different weeks or different, do, what day do I plan to work on it, dates. And so that way each week stuff's coming up for me automatically, because I already pre-decided that. And so I'm not having to, it cuts my planning time way, way down on a monthly, weekly, and especially a daily basis, because it's just I've already set those intentions, and I know at a big picture level where I'm trying to go, so I can still adjust within the month and week and day as needed in service of those same goals. So, what are your next steps? Your next steps are to look back over the last 90 days and look at what worked and what didn't. I want you to choose 3 areas of your life or business that you want to focus on for this next quarter. And then within those 3 areas, I want you to choose 1 to 3 goals, projects, or habits, and build out your 30, 60, 90-day plan and what that looks like. What I'd love for you to do is, if you're part of our face or tech and marketing for coaches community on Facebook, the free Facebook group, you can, I'd love for you to share one of your 30-day focus projects for your business within the group, so we can kind of help you out and cheer you on, because you never know who might be working on something or has insight into a project that you're trying to take on. And the other option that you've got as well is I'm always here to help. So if you'd actually like personalized help with your 90-day plan, feel free to book a free Clear the Overwhelm call with me. And I will, look over what you've got and help you get clear on if there's any fine tuning or identify any things that you might not have thought of within your 90-day plan. So that way you're set up for success this quarter. You can either use your phone to scan the QR code. I will also link it in the comments on the video as well. And as always, can't wait to hear what you're up to, and have a great day.